The knock came at exactly 8 p.m., sharp and deliberate. I stood at the door in my silk robe, knowing I had no money, knowing what this conversation would lead to. 3 months behind on rent, no job prospects, nowhere to turn. Through the peephole, I saw him, my landlord Marcus, flanked by 2 other men I'd never seen before. My heart raced as I opened the door. Marcus's eyes traveled over me slowly, taking in the robe that had slipped just slightly off my shoulder. "Emma," he said, voice smooth as aged whiskey, "we need to talk about your situation." The 2 men behind him said nothing, but their presence filled the hallway like smoke. Before we dive in, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button and subscribe. It takes just a second and helps more than you know. Plus, you'll never miss what comes next. Now, let's continue. I stepped aside, letting them in. The door clicked shut with finality. Marcus walked to my kitchen counter, running his fingers along the granite. His friends, one tall with salt and pepper hair, the other broader with intense, dark eyes, positioned themselves by the windows. The air grew thick with unspoken intentions. 3 months, Marcus said, turning to face me. "That's $4,500 you owe me, Emma." His tone wasn't angry, just matter of fact, which somehow made it worse. I pulled my robe tighter, though the gesture felt pointless under their collective gaze. "I know," I managed, voice barely above a whisper. "I've been trying." "The job market is just difficult," he finished for me. "I understand, which is why I brought my associates." He gestured to the 2 men. "This is James and David. We've been discussing alternative arrangements." James, the silver-haired one, smiled, not unkindly, but with clear interest. David remained stoic, arms crossed, watching me like I was a puzzle to solve. My pulse quickened. I knew where this was heading, had known the moment I'd seen them through the peephole. "What kind of arrangements?" I asked, though my voice betrayed that I already knew. Marcus stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive, woody. "You're a beautiful woman, Emma. Smart, resourceful." His hand brushed my arm, feather light. "We could work something out, the 3 of us, tonight." The room spun slightly, 3 of them. The math was overwhelming, but so was my bank account. "All 3 of you?" My voice cracked slightly. David finally spoke, his voice deeper than expected. "Only if you want to. No pressure." But his eyes said otherwise, hungry, patient, like a predator who knew the prey had nowhere to run. I looked between them, 3 successful men, all focused entirely on me. The weight of their attention was intoxicating. Part of me wanted to refuse, to maintain some dignity. But another part, a deeper part, was curious. When would I ever have this opportunity again? "Just tonight?" I asked, meeting Marcus's gaze. "Just tonight," he confirmed. "And your slate is clean." I took a deep breath, feeling the silk of my robe against my skin, hyper-aware of every sensation. "Okay." The word hung in the air like incense. James moved first, setting down his jacket with deliberate care. David loosened his tie. Marcus never broke eye contact with me. "Good girl," Marcus murmured, and something about the way he said it sent heat pooling low in my stomach. He reached for the belt of my robe, pausing just long enough for me to stop him if I wanted. I didn't. The silk whispered as it fell open, revealing the lace underneath, the expensive set I'd bought in better times, when I could afford such indulgences. James inhaled sharply. "Stunning," he said, voice rougher now. Marcus's hands were warm as they pushed the robe off my shoulders completely. It pooled at my feet like water. I stood before them in black lace, feeling powerful despite my vulnerability. Their eyes devoured me, and I let them look. David approached slowly, giving me time to retreat. When I didn't, his large hand settled on my waist, thumbs tracing the edge of lace. "You're sure?" he asked, and I appreciated the check-in, even as desire coursed through me. "Yes," I breathed, and meant it. His kiss was different from what I expected. Gentle at first, exploratory. I melted into it, my hands finding his broad shoulders. Behind me, I felt Marcus press close, his lips finding my neck. The sensation of being between them was overwhelming, delicious. James watched for a moment before joining, his hands skilled, as they traced my curves. 3 sets of hands, 3 different touches. Marcus firm and possessive, David gentle but intense, James teasing and expert. I was drowning in sensation. They moved me toward the bedroom with surprising coordination, like dancers who knew their steps. My king-size bed had never felt so small. Marcus sat on the edge, pulling me onto his lap. I could feel his readiness through his expensive slacks, the heat of him. "Let us take care of you," he murmured against my throat, and I surrendered to. James knelt beside the bed, his silver hair catching the low light. His fingers traced patterns on my thighs, each touch sending sparks through me. David stood behind, hands in my hair, tilting my head back for another kiss. The lace disappeared piece by piece, discarded with reverence rather than haste. They undressed too, revealing bodies that spoke of gym memberships and good living. Marcus was lean and defined. James carried his age with distinguished grace. David was built like a former athlete. I was lifted, positioned, worshipped. Marcus beneath me, strong and steady. James's mouth found sensitive places that made me gasp. David's hands were everywhere, orchestrating pleasure like a maestro. They moved together, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in delicious counterpoint. When one would slow, another would intensity. They read my responses like a familiar song, adjusting their rhythm to my breathing, my soft sounds. Time became fluid. There were moments of gentle exploration, James tracing my spine with fingertips, light as butterfly wings. Moments of intensity, David's grip tightening as he lost himself in the moment. Moments of surprising tenderness, Marcus brushing hair from my face, checking that I was still with them, still wanting this. They shifted positions with practiced ease. I found myself between different combinations of them, each configuration bringing new sensations. The pleasure built in waves, cresting and receding, building higher each time. "So beautiful," someone murmured. I'd lost track of whose voice was whose. "Perfect!" came another voice, rough with desire. I was beyond words, could only respond with my body, with the arch of my back, the curl of my toes. They surrounded me completely, a constellation of touch and heat and mounting pressure. The first peak hit suddenly, unexpectedly. My body tightened, trembled, released in waves that seemed to go on forever. They held me through it, grounding me even as I flew apart. But they weren't finished. They continued their attention, building me up. Again. The second wave was deeper, pulled from somewhere primal. I might have screamed, I wasn't sure. All I knew was the feeling of complete surrender, of being thoroughly claimed. The third time, they joined me. Marcus first, his control finally breaking. With a groan that vibrated through me. James followed, his distinguished composure cracking beautifully. David was last, his intensity reaching a crescendo that left us all breathless. We collapsed together, a tangle of limbs and satisfied exhaustion. The room smelled of expensive cologne and sweat and satisfaction. I lay in the center of them, feeling oddly cherished despite the transactional nature of our encounter. Marcus pressed a kiss to my shoulder. "Consider your rent paid in full," he murmured, voice satisfied. James chuckled, the sound rich and warm. "I'd say she's earned at least 6 months." David said nothing, but his arm tightened around my waist possessively. I dozed briefly, surrounded by their warmth. When I woke, they were getting dressed, moving with the quiet efficiency of men who had early meetings, but each stopped to kiss. Me goodbye, Marcus on the forehead, James on the cheek, David on the lips with surprising tenderness. "Thank you," I said, meaning it more than they could know. Marcus paused at the door. "If you ever need..." "Another arrangement," he said, leaving the offer hanging. After they left, I stood in my apartment, still naked, feeling strangely powerful. Yes, I'd traded my body for rent, but I'd done it on my terms. I'd taken control of a desperate situation and turned it into something unexpectedly beautiful. I showered, washing away the evening but not the memory. As I dried off, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. Same face, same body, but something in my eyes had changed. I looked like a woman who knew her own power. The next morning, I woke to a text from Marcus. Account shows paid in full. Also, David owns a marketing firm. He mentioned they're hiring. Interested? I smiled, typing back, very interested. Sometimes the most unexpected paths lead to exactly where we need to be. That night hadn't just paid my rent. It had opened doors I didn't even know existed. 3 months later, I was creative director at David's firm, making more than I ever had before. We maintained professional boundaries at work, but occasionally his hand would linger on mine as he passed documents, and we'd both remember that night. Marcus still owned my building, but now I paid rent on time, with money. Though sometimes, when I passed him in the lobby, he'd give me a look that said the other arrangement was still on the table. And James? He became an unexpected friend, someone who'd check in, take me to expensive lunches, offer advice without expecting anything in return. That night of desperation had transformed into something else entirely: opportunity, connection, a reminder that sometimes surrendering control is the most powerful thing you can do. Would I do it again? In a heartbeat. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. Because that night, I discovered parts of myself I didn't know existed. Because sometimes the best stories start with the worst circumstances. Because sometimes, when 3 men knock on your door, you should definitely let them in. Tell me, if you were in my position, what would you have chosen? Would you have opened that door to possibility or kept it locked tight? Have you ever turned a desperate situation into an unexpected opportunity? Share your thoughts below. I read every comment, and I'm genuinely curious about your perspectives. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you never miss what comes next. Trust me, you won't want to miss the next confession. See you there.